the recording has started. We're good.
Oh, there it is. Okay, so I remember last time we had a bit of a discussion about our perspectives on Russia, for example.
Mhm.
And I will tell you, from the U.S. side, for the most part, we don't pay any attention to Russia at all. Outside of the fact it's just a convenient ghost for us to kind of say, "Oh yeah, the Russians are bad. We got to go after them." And that's about as far as our analysis goes. Well, in your case, the Russians are very important to your history, your culture, your location. So you are going to have a completely different perspective of the Russians than we have. And my only point was to let you know, hey, the United States people don't generally think about the Russians much at all. So if I say something that's kind of offhanded or doesn't sound right, it's because I don't have the same point of view as you. And, we need to call those things out and say, hey, here, this is a little different than what you think it is. And, it's the same thing if you're talking about things that are important in the United States. I may have to say, well, we don't necessarily see things that way. But the real big point, though, is going back to the 1991 war that the U.S. had against Serbia. In the U.S., we've forgotten about it. We don't even pay attention. Most people couldn't even tell you that we fought a war against Serbia. But in your case, it's a very big deal because, you probably know people that got killed. You certainly know buildings that got smashed. And we actually did some pretty nasty things there. So in your mind, this is like a way bigger issue. And it really taints your opinion about the United States in general. Well, so this is just an example of that point.
True. One thing that one should always have in mind is that you really do need to very much differentiate the people versus the governments or the or the polities or whatever, So people, I was in the United States for 1 year. I love the people, there was simply, I don't know, open, optimistic, ready to talk, great people. I loved it, loved it there. However, the United States government has a completely different policy. It has its own, ambitions and its intentions. We can obviously go into that. Of course, I find it, very problematic and everything, partly because of my experience, partly because of other things, but whatever. The point is that we do have to differentiate between this. So, it's not, it's simply, when we get to the higher politics sphere, and we have governments involved or peoples involved, they do tend to act a lot more nasty than ordinary people would.
Oh, absolutely. And actually, I don't know if we're going to touch on it or not, but just talking about the difference between the way Tito did things versus the way Pavlich, am I saying it right? Pavlich? Is that his name?
Yeah.
Pavlich. Okay. So Pavlich and Tito kind of had a lot of similar things that they were doing. And, from a government perspective, they were kind of nasty. But, we kind of have to realize that's what a government does. I'm sure when you get down to individual people level, I doubt that the individual Croat would probably want to go out and shoot an individual Serb for sake of argument. They might, but in general, that's not what you want to do. You want to live with your neighbors and kind of do your life thing, and you don't necessarily want to kill people. But sometimes your governments encourage you to do that, and they kind of reward you for doing that, which is a whole different discussion.
Yeah, it is. It is. I completely agree with what you said because I did have some experience of old Yugoslavia, and it was, the people were okay. However, in 1991, 89, whatever, things really started, and like somebody said, the whole thing escalated. So I guess it's very difficult to explain. I really, I'm going to talk about things that I don't feel that I'm really an expert, in things like that. This really requires, I don't know, sociology, psychology.
Yeah.
It's something that is, really dark, but it obviously exists. you know.
Sociology, psychology, and political science all kind of roll together, whatever you would call it. Oh, and history too, of course. That's kind of why
Yeah.
we're at it.
There is a event basically in World War II that in Yugoslavia
Okay.
that simply made it qualitatively different than anything else before that. Okay.
Okay.
And this is why I think that Pavelić is the most important person in the war, because
Okay.
he launched that event.
Oh, so I'm going to take just a slight moment, but we're going to give you most of the floor on this. So pretty much one of the first books I ever read when I was going down this path, I don't remember the name of it. I think it was like 1941. I didn't quite understand what I was reading at first. But then as I kind of got into it, I realized, oh, this is pretty much describing what you just said, kind of like the first things that Pavlovich did at the beginning of his reign. And since I didn't really know that was a thing and understand what was going on, it's like, well, this is kind of brutal. What the hell's going on here? And then as I got through the book, I realized, oh, this thing pretty much changed the whole scope of what was going on in Yugoslavia, because you change it from like, yeah, the Germans are just occupying Yugoslavia to, well, now you've given like a blank check to everybody to kind of do whatever the hell they want to do. And that's where Pavlovich did his thing. And you should probably talk about that thing, since people that are listening to this may not know what we're talking about. I'll defer to you, sir.
I don't even know what exact words to use, but
Yeah, it's a tough
anyway,
one.
yeah, it is a tough one, partially because we don't want to get banned.
Right.
So also because of the lack of agreement on what exactly happened, on why it happened, and to be blunt, how many Serbs were killed.
Yeah, thousands, I'm
Very,
sure.
yeah, we're talking about, we can definitely say that we're talking about hundreds of thousands.
Hundreds of thousands.
But
Okay.
how many hundreds of thousands, that is subject to dispute. And for that reason, I'm going to only quote German reports.
Oh, okay. That actually
Because,
makes sense, because the other side's going to pretty much flavor them to give themselves make themselves look better. So yeah, the Germans are going to be about as neutral as you get, probably.
well, they're the Croatia is their puppet state, the independent state of Croatia, and
Right.
Pavelić is their pal. However, also there are some people that dispute even the German reports. But honestly, I'm not gonna waste too much time on this.
Yeah.
We're talking about hundreds of thousands, and honestly, any the kind of discussion beyond that, it's useless.
Yeah, I think the whole
So
point to take away is that you realize that once he lit this candle, that okay, it's okay to start moving people around. You've changed the whole nature of what was unfolding in Yugoslavia in World War II.
yes, and so for that reason, I'm going to start and share a German report.
Oh, there we go. Oh, now I can read
Yes.
it. Okay.
Yes. So it's translated into English. Obviously, the report will be in German because it's a report given to Himmler by
Yeah.
the Gestapo.
This is February 42. Okay, so quick question. On a historical perspective, is this pre-Serbian uprising the first time, or is this at the same time as the first Serbian uprising? But there was a period, I thought, where the Serbians kind of had their own thing going on. I think the Germans kind of blessed them to say, hey, we'll let you have this place. And I forget the name of the actor that did that. I'd have to look it up. But I don't know when this Pavlovich I don't really want to call it uprising. Pavlovich actions took place in regards to like the first Serbian Republic that was post.
Oh, you're talking
41
about
invasion.
Tito's Republic in Užice.
Yeah, that one. How do you say it? Užice? Užice. Yes, that one.
Yeah, good luck with that.
Well, I mean, was it 42 that they did that, or was it 41 that they did that?
No, it is 41. It's in Serbia, and it is mostly unrelated to this.
Oh, okay. All right. Then never mind. Ignore what I was saying. Carry on then.
Okay, so basically, people can read this report by themselves, but in a nutshell, the Gestapo is reporting to Himmler on why there is a massive Serbian uprising in the independent state of Croatia going on. And the report blames
this is the Serbian uprising inside of Croatia, then, not the Serbian Republic in Serbia. Okay, go ahead then.
Yeah. So there will be basically three fronts: Serbia, inner Serbia, Montenegro, and Croatia. So those would be the main fronts. You'd have some action in Slovenia. You would have some action, up there in the Pannonian Plain, but that these are the main fronts. Anyways, so they are explaining to Himmler why there is a massive Serbian uprising in Croatia. And they are blaming this uprising on the Croat Ustaše. Essentially, they're blaming this uprising on Pavelić.
Yeah, I could see that. Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, when you start whacking, better watch what I'm saying here. When you start taking action against your neighbors generally tend to want to defend themselves, or things happen where they respond to this atrocity you're committing against them. It's kind of what humans do. If you beat me up, I'm going to hit you back.
Indeed. So I'm going to share another thing with you here right now, and it's something that I find linked to a misconception.
Oh, what's this? Okay. Let's see what this says. Map of liberated territory 41. Oh, so the red spaces are Serbian spaces, I guess?
Yes, on the map left.
And the light blue are Croat, I guess?
Yes.
What are the purples?
Slovenia.
Oh, okay. And the greenish are Bosniaks, I guess?
The light green are Bosniaks, and the dark green are Albanians.
Albanians. Oh, wow. So Albanians are all up in Kosovo and stuff then.
Yes.
Oh. Okay, anyway, let's stay on point here. Carry on, Andrea.
So just, okay, obviously this is a ethnic or some map of ethnic distribution in Yugoslavia. And that is on the left side, and on the right side, this is the map of the uprising.
That's mostly Serbian territories, isn't it?
Yes, but please bear in mind, a smallish caveat is that the map on the right was prepared by communists. Oh. So, it's take it with some salt, but it's generally good as a illustration of the territories where the uprising took place. So, can you see the similarities, or what is the overlap?
Yeah, jump out right away to me. It's like most of the Serbian-held areas with Serbian majorities were the ones that are attributed for the initial uprising. If you believe this map, anyways.
Yes, and the map is generally accurate.
And oddly enough, I don't see any Serbians in Croatian territories except maybe for the stuff on the left-hand side. I guess that's probably some of those are in Croat territories, but not a lot.
Yeah, that is because that's as I said, it's grain of salt. I think that this map is prepared by the communists because that they attribute the liberated territories to themselves. So, but generally speaking, the point being is that Serbs revolted in 1941, and they revolted, in three different territories on account of three different reasons. But for the territory of Croatia, which is today's Croatia and today's Bosnia, they revolted on account of Pavelić and his Ustaše.
Oh, so like the left-hand side was probably mostly due to Pavlovich. So I got a theory about the right-hand side because I think initially when things went down, it was probably the Serbians that were more organized for these sorts of things because it was like ex-military leaders, ex-government leaders, and they all kind of like came together and decided, hey, we're going to start doing our own thing. They had like more infrastructure, I guess. Is that the word you use?
You're completely right. So, but for that, we will go into the specifics of each revolt. So,
right, okay.
At this point, I guess we want to go back to our Three Kings discussion. Maybe if you want for me to give you a bit of a intro to each of them.
Yes, that would be really good, actually. That would be really good.
Okay, can we see our Three Kings again?
Oh, yeah, there they are. Got them.
Okay, perfect. Perfect. I'm going to actually have a highly controversial question at the end to, give a cliffhanger until our next meeting. But so from left to right, this is at the start of the war, Colonel Dragoljub Mihailović, which is a Serb, and he leads a Serb force. The center is Josip Broz, called Tito, who is a Croat Slovene, and he leads a mostly Serb force. Oh. And on the right side is Ante Pavelić, called Poglavnik, which should be like the head chief or the equivalent of the German title of that time. And he obviously leads Ustasha Croats, but which actually include Croats and Muslims, because at that point Muslims were Croats and so on and so forth. Anyways, so just, three short bios. I don't want to, use up too much time on this. Yeah, but for Mihailović, he is a Serb from Serbia. He is a World War I veteran from the Serbian army, obviously victorious. He's highly decorated. He is very anti-German. And he actually gets into trouble with some higher ups of the army, which are actually at that point pro-German. Yeah. So I mentioned that this is also a Serb from Serbia, which is his rival, and who got sacked after not reacting to Italy. But Mihailović is very much a maverick within the Yugoslav army. He has some unorthodox ideas. Sure. Such as a preparation of to the US public, these would be Green Beret equivalents. But for us, those are called Chetnik or storm units. So they would function very much as the Green Berets would function within the American army. So the point being is that they would act behind enemy lines. They would instruct civilians how to fight, prepare for guerrilla warfare.
That's a pretty good analogy, Andrea, because I don't know if many people have really drawn that equation before. The Chetniks are pretty much the same as a Green Beret.
Well, one of Mihailović's commanders went to the U.S., emigrated to the U.S., and trained Green Berets.
Oh,
so
there you go. Okay,
he had relevant guerrilla experience. The Chetniks, as such, are a relatively old, 50-year, 100-year-old Serbian name for paramilitary or irregular formations that basically fight in a skirmish type or guerrilla type war.
It's really funny, just a slight divergence. Didn't the Austrians have a group of troops that did the same sort of thing?
Oh, of course. They were called Grenzers. And they
come from the same area? Because, they could have come from the same part of the area, right? Like where Croatia is now?
Yes, it was the military frontier. It was a part of Croatia, where Croatia is now, military frontier, and a part of north of Serbia.
So this
And
whole thing's kind of like baked into the psyche there. This is just kind of what you do because they've been doing it for hundreds of years by this point.
or thousands.
Well, yeah, actually, because they definitely did it during Napoleonic Wars, and I'm pretty sure a lot of the initial Turkish fighting was probably between the Chetniks and the Turks defenders that were out there.
In 19th century, yes. Before that, they were not called Chetniks. Actually, they were called Hussars for light cavalry.
Hussars,
Haiduks,
okay. Yeah.
Haiduks or Uskoks for light infantry. But it's the Balkans. You have seen the geography. It's like if there is a guerrilla country, this is guerrilla country.
Yeah, you're pretty much custom made for guerrillas. The Balkans and Afghanistan, very good guerrilla country. Anyway, back to the Three Kings.
So Mihailovich was actually his advancement in the army was relatively delayed, probably because of this, because he was a non-conformist individual. However, probably by the time that the army chiefs realized that Yugoslavia was in serious trouble, and by the time they kicked out the pro-German guy, or removed him from the head of the army, they started preparing for an attack. And actually,
so that was late 40, early 41, or was that predating that?
Late 30s, early 40s.
Late 30s, okay. That wasn't the guy that the Ostasa killed, is it? No, because they killed it. They actually. Oh, never mind. These are different things. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, it's different. You really need to have your bearings, because Ustaša killed and VMRO, which were the Bulgarians. They killed King Alexander.
Yes, they killed the king, not the pro-German guys. Okay.
Obviously,
Yeah.
No, and
actually, that's a good point. Yeah, the Ustaša wouldn't kill the pro-German guys. That would be kind of silly.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, listen, I mean, obviously, they wouldn't kill a pro-German guy even before 1933, and after 1933, no way. So, basically, this guy on the left was a theoretician of guerrilla warfare. He made also some politically incorrect recommendations, such as dividing the army up into three parts: on the Slovenian part, Croatian part, and the Serbian part, in order to strengthen their staying power, because ultimately he would be proven right because the army simply collapsed.
Yeah, it did.
Anyways, also, and this is I'm not clear if this was his idea or if this was something that the army came up with, is that the army should relinquish the outlying territories such as in Pannonia, which are unfit for guerrilla warfare, and concentrate mostly in the Bosnian mountains.
Oh my gosh, yeah, that's the place that you want to fight guerrilla wars, is in the Bosnian territories.
Yeah, Bosnian and adjacent mountains, which are in Serbia, Montenegro, Croatia. So actually, this idea was taken up by the communist government after the World War II. But this is another story. As I understand it, as it seems obvious, Mihailovich was selected by the army higher-ups to continue guerrilla warfare. Not only him, there were some Chetnik organizations, and they were also tasked with organizing guerrilla warfare. But the idea was that the army would reorganize itself once the front was breached. The army would reorganize itself into Chetnik formations and fight the guerrilla war.
Okay.
So
that makes sense. I've seen that pattern a lot in other readings as well. Okay.
Yeah. So this is actually what he did, and we will, discuss him at greater length. In any case, he was very anti-German, obviously. I don't know if this has a lot to do with German ideology. I'm not big on the Antifa, general interpretation, because, these are Germans and Austrians. You fight them in one war, you fight them in another war.
Yes.
It's the default situation. You have your
And
old
it'd be a lot
friends.
like if the United States just showed up there all of a sudden. I'm pretty sure the Serbian people would probably be mad at the U.S. and probably go against them if the U.S. was doing anything dumb there initially.
Well,
Because
obviously in 1941, in 1942, 1943, if the U.S. had showed up, they would be welcomed with open arms.
yeah, but U.S. wasn't going to do that anyway. Different discussion.
Yeah, different discussion. Obviously, things have changed. Okay, now we go to Josip Broz Tito, who is the leader or the default leader or the general secretary or whatever of the Yugoslav Communist Party. And he was, I think, the only one or two persons that survived the purges in Moscow.
Oh.
And when I say survived, I literally mean survived.
So they actually killed off Yugoslavian communists?
Well, of course. Because one of the things that you really need to have, have in mind is that Stalin, and not just him, but other communists also, that this would be a pattern that would be repeating itself, killed rivals. Yeah. And also killed insufficiently loyal people. So there would be
seems to be a feature of a communist government, definitely.
Yes. Ultimately, after World War II, this would be, well, actually not completely, but this would be mostly replaced by imprisonment or, kicking you out of the party. But prior World War II, you get shot. No questions.
Yeah, plus your societal controls are weakened, so you can take more extreme measures that you wouldn't get away with in a non-war situation.
This is also before the war. This is in the interim period between the wars.
You're right. I'm sorry. I got my times wrong. Yeah. Okay. Well, things are getting kind of heated in the 30s anyway. So yeah, it was a precursor to the war.
Yeah. So at that point, there were purges. I mean, obviously huge purges in Moscow and in the Soviet Union, and he was one of the survivors of these purges. It seems to me that Stalin wanted to get ultimately rid of him before the war.
I can see that, especially considering how things played out post-war. I can't say Stalin was wrong.
Yeah. Also, I'm not sure on his capacity, because actually, I think that Stalin sent how can I describe this, as more of a heavyweight person than Tito to Yugoslavia.
Right.
And this person's name was Mustafa Golubic.
I've not ran across that name.
Yes, he was, I think, a colonel in the NKVD.
Okay.
So the KGB precursor. Obviously, and Tito was not. So, that, I guess, tells a lot. And the other thing is that Mustafa Golubic was an old guerrilla fighter, actually a Chetnik from World War I. So he would have, and he did have, relations and acquaintances in the Serbian officer corps and the Yugoslav officer corps.
Interesting. Okay, so he was on Tito's staff or not?
No, he was not on Tito's staff. I think he even came here to eliminate Tito.
Oh, he wouldn't be on his staff then. Okay.
Yeah. So, but Tito denounced him to the Germans first, and the Germans found Golubic and they shot him. So he was not involved here.
That's pretty clever. So Tito kind of engaged the Germans to do what the what the NKVD would do, or what the heck they morph into the NKVD?
The KGB.
Draw a blank, man. KGB. Thank you. Oh yeah, right. NKVD was World War II. KGB was post World War II.
Yeah.
So in essence, he got the Germans to do the NKVD's dirty work. That's kind of what it amounted to.
Well, it got the Germans to save his skin, presumably. That is the theory that goes on. I think that's
Okay.
stands for a reason. Anyways, we're not going to. I mean, Tito spent time in the Spanish Civil War. He was in a prison camp in France, and he resurfaced in Yugoslavia. There are now theories that the Germans did the Lenin maneuver, and that they were actually the ones that brought Tito and his associates to Yugoslavia, because they wanted to implement something that is very close to what they did in 1917.
That's kind of funny, because that was part of my design that I was working on years ago, was the Spanish Civil War vets coming to do stuff inside of Yugoslavia. So they were on Tito's side? I guess there were probably Spanish Civil War vets sprinkled throughout the entire area, right? Not just with Tito.
Yes, only with Tito. Because
only with Tito. Okay.
Because the normal ones, I mean the other ones which were non-communist did not go to Spain to fight on the side of the communists, and all the Ustasha went in Spain to fight on the side of the nationalists or Franco.
Right.
And the other ones obviously didn't go to war because they had no side. Obviously, Mikhailovich would not be going to Spain to fight on either side, because they're kind of incompatible. Really. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
So in any case, this is what happens is obviously that the communists are not active against the Germans. Quite the contrary, it seems. Because there are some even reports of pro-German Serbs that complain that the Germans only employ communists, and the Germans won't look at these pro-German Serbs.
That's convoluted. Yeah.
Well, it is. I mean, it has some explanation to it. Yeah. Because obviously you would be keeping the communists close to yourself and keeping an eye on them, and obviously these pro-German Serbs would they would remain loyal to you. So what not. But anyways.
Well, part of the issue too is like early on, the Germans were really giving the Russians a business. So if you were actually trying to jockey for power inside of Yugoslavia, you'd probably have to favor the Germans, because the communists were looking like they were getting their butts kicked. So it's like, I can't really lie to the communists. They're not going to help me any.
Yeah, but to be correct, so the Communist Party in Yugoslavia acts along with the Communist Party in the Soviet Union and the Soviet Union itself. So when there is an agreement with Germans, they're in agreement with Germans. When they're in war with Germans, the Communist Party wants to cause rebellions against the Germans.
So their whole modus operandi changed after June of 41. Because prior to that, they would have been pro-German, but after that, they would have been anti-German.
Exactly.
Interesting. That's very important to note.
Yeah. There's even some documents that indicate that the Communist Party wanted to be legalized in the Axis puppet state of Croatia. To be recognized as a legal party there.
What would Pavlovich have to say about that?
Well, there is one of his people that pushed for a legalization of the Communist Party and its official recognition.
Right.
And for Pavelić personally, I'm not sure that he personally had direct contact with the communists, although he did it through intermediaries.
I have a little bit of bad news. I'm not sure how much longer my phone's going to last, so we probably need to switch to Pavlovich real quick before my phone dies.
We're going to him in 5 minutes, and then we'll go ahead and ask the controversial question.
All right. Okay. Go ahead. I think I have 5 minutes.
Pavelić, okay, he's the leader of the Ustaše. These guys are far-right, Catholic, pro-Italy, eventually pro-Germany organization. They want to have, there's the Catholic angle that is completely always put under the rug.
Yeah, okay.
and I don't even have time to discuss it. I'm not
Yeah.
even that much of a how should I say it, expert on this. But
Yeah.
it should be looked into, but other time, other place. Anyways,
Nope. Yep.
he comes in with the Italians in 1941.
Okay.
The Italians and the Germans establish him as the leader of their puppet regime.
Right.
What is a very bad thing is that one of the Croat democratic politicians, their main politician, also gives a declaration that supports the new regime.
So what is the name of that politician?
That would be Maček.
That is Maček. Okay.
Yes.
So this is something we should highlight right now, because Maček pretty much kind of disappears from the scene shortly after this moment. But wasn't there a point where there was like some chance that Maček would have been the ruler? Or that was never going to happen because the Axis weren't going to let him do his thing. But didn't they offer him the rulership of Croatia first?
I don't think they did. We'll get back to what you said about Maček in some later episode. At this point, it's just that Maček gave some kind of a endorsement of the new regime. What was he thinking? I'm not sure. It's like it stands to reason that he was manipulated. It stands to reason that he was wrong, but it also stands to reason that he wanted to give their support to the new regime. So I don't really know. I don't really understand his motives. I don't really care. It's just the point that when he gives the support to this regime becomes the Croatian official popular regime.
Oh, that's why they become Pavlovich was able to kind of take charge so quickly. Because I think Maček was like the main Croatian guy initially, right? And then he gave his acceptance of the new regime. He kind of backed off from a leadership role, because at that point he kind of just more or less disappears from the scene.
I think there's even a story that Pavelić wanted to either shoot Maček or made a mock shooting of Maček to terrify him, because obviously at that point. But for this story, it's just that simply it goes from Maček to Pavelić, and Pavelić, that should make him the popular leader.
Yeah, sure.
But Pavelić almost immediately does a very unpopular move and gives over a lot of Dalmatia to Italy.
Oh.
Okay, really? I mean, the Italians obviously want their pound of flesh, because we supported you. You're our guy. We kept you. Now give us Dalmatia.
Does that include major cities? Does that include Trieste, or is Trieste in a different area?
Trieste is always Italy. It's always Italy.
But what's the city there, though?
I'm not sure. I think that Šibenik or things like that, Zadar, was in Italy, but it remained in Italy. I'm not even sure. I mean, it's not the whole of Dalmatia, but he had to give some Croatian territories, as they were seen, to Italy, and this obviously dampened his popularity. And afterwards, when the partisans were in revolt and they wanted to cause revolt, they wanted to go full Croatian nationalist, and they said, look, Pavelić gave Dalmatia to Italy, we will get it back for Croatia.
Oh, wow, this is actually really important, Andre. I did not know about this. This actually makes things make a lot more sense, because between that and what Pavlovich did next, it kind of makes sense why you would have like this raging revolution going on. These two actions would really incentivize people to come out against you big time.
Well, this would incentivize Croats in Dalmatia to join the partisans.
Yes,
because they wouldn't have any other option. You can't join the Ustaše.
That was the hardest thing for me to wrap my head around, is why the heck did the Croats come out in favor of the partisans? But now that makes a lot of sense. Okay.
Well, that statement would need to be very much put into context, because we're talking about thousands as opposed to tens of thousands. But this would be one of the reasons why partisans would try and have their pitch to have Croats join them.
Right.
And for the main part of the partisan army, there were the massacres that the Ustaše did against the Serbs.
Mm-hmm.
So these massacres completely changed the geography within Croatia and Bosnia. Today's Croatia and Bosnia, not then the Axis puppet state.
Yeah.
And they made the Serbs revolt, and they made the whole situation, boil over. And so they were the thing that made. They didn't make Tito because Tito originally wanted to go to Serbia, and I'll explain why.
They basically gave Tito a gift to kind of mobilize more than just Serbians, because at this point you've now got all the ethnic mix in play, whereas before it was, the Serbians were kind of like the dominant force, but now this kind of changes the algebra immensely, because now everybody's wanting a piece of the action, not just the Serbs.
Well, I have to disagree with that, because
That's why we're talking.
If we're looking into, I showed you the map of the revolt. If we're looking into the situation of who joins the various guerrilla forces, as opposed to who joins or is mostly with the Axis, it's still very much the Serbs are with the guerrilla forces. The Croats and Bosniaks would be with the Axis. For the Slovenes, it would be complicated. As for the Macedonians, as you can see on the map, they would remain silent completely. So
there wasn't really anybody supporting their cause until the Greeks kind of started doing their thing, but that's a whole different conversation.
That's true. So anyways, it's simply, I don't know how to explain why Pavelić and Ustaše did what they did. Obviously, there was some bad blood, misunderstandings.
My speculation is partly probably a cash grab, because it's like, wait, you guys have all this stuff. Let's just beat you up and take all your stuff. I'm sure that's a part of it. I don't think that's the whole thing.
That's nice, but I don't think actually. I'm not sure 100% that it's linked to that. It is a cash grab.
That's not the whole thing. I think that's just part of it, but that's not the main thing. There's something else at play here that I'm not really quite sure what it is.
Well, again, but this is what it's important for this story and how the war, progresses, is that this basically is unprecedented, because the Austrians behaved horrifically in Serbia. I mean, there were problematic ethnic tensions throughout Yugoslavia, but there were problems. There were anti-Serb demonstrations in Croatia as far as back as 1902 or even before that or whatever. And, things were bad in World War I because there was a division. The Croats did not like the Yugoslav government because it was probably repressive towards them, but then again, it was repressive towards the Serbs also. So, whatever. But the point is that this becomes a completely new ballgame from this point on.
So he set up some camps. I know this, and I'm pretty sure that some of these camps are probably like places you could visit now, because it's like, okay, you shouldn't do this. Pretty much on the equivalent of like, you could go to Auschwitz or Dachau now to kind of see the camps the Germans set up. It's like, yeah, okay, don't do this. And here's a memorial for the fact of something you shouldn't do. So we kind of need to examine that, because you could almost make the argument that what Pavelić did, the Germans kind of like magnified it and industrialized it later for their efforts along these lines. So it's almost like you kind of set the table for that. And so we kind of need to examine that, and then the repercussions from that, I think, because that makes everything else make a lot more sense.
Yeah,
you
it
begin to
does.
understand why people were lining up with each other and why they were having this fight, and it makes a lot more sense. So I think we need to focus on that next time.
This is where we are going to leave off our story, and I'm going to do one very controversial question for you.
Okay. I'm not allowed
And
to answer yet, am I?
Can you see it?
Who was the German main enemy, main asset, and so-so? Oh boy,
Oh,
that
okay.
is a tough one.